So we've discussed most of last weekend's action. Let's have a brief look ahead. I guess one of the biggest fights at the minute is Manny Pacquiao versus Tim Bradley. God himself has come down and saved Manny Pacquiao's injuries via salt water. So, Jet, will you be supporting Manny Pacquiao against Bradley?
Supporting, no, to be fair, look, I'll be honest. Manny Pacquiao, what he's done is incredible. I think he's eight weight world champ, something like that. Fantastic achievement. Like me, I would never even get to English level, let alone 8 world champion. It's fantastic. And then obviously there's always been stories of PEDs and that sort of stuff. Like, I'm not gonna comment on that at the moment, but yeah, for me, I've never really bought fully into someone like Manny Pacquiao. I've always appreciated someone like Floyd Mayweather more. I don't know, just from a pure boxing perspective. Obviously Manny Pacquiao's fights are more exciting, but for me, Floyd has always appealed more to me. Just straight boxing. For me, I think Tim Bradley's going to win this fight. Pacquiao, I don't know what he's got left in the tank. He's 38 now, 37, something like that. And for me, I can't see him winning this fight. Tim Bradley's fresher, younger, fitter, possibly even more hungrier. After the first fight, he got robbed. Second fight, lost convincingly. Third fight, I think he's got a point to prove. With Teddy Atlas, I think he's really going to do a good job on Manny Pacquiao this time. He's going to win the fight, I think. It's going to be a close fight, don't get me wrong. I'd say 116, 112, possibly Tim Bradley. The thing is, what Bradley's got left as well, he's had a lot of wars. Ruslan Provodnikov, who was the other fight? There's been a few more fights. Jesse Vargas was a fight, a war as well for the whole fight. There's been a lot of recent wars for Tim Bradley, and if he has a fraction of what he had left pre the Provodnikov fight, he'll win this fight comfortably enough for me. What are your thoughts on it, and what do you think? What do you think of Tim Bradley's wars over the years as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's been wars definitely. What I would say is, was his last fight Brandon Rios?
Yeah, The Walking Dead.
Arguably, that was the best performance of his career since moving up to 147. In terms of the nature of the win, and I think momentum is very key in boxing. It's something I often look at. And in one corner, you've got a guy coming off arguably the best run of his career in Brandon Rios. We've got a younger guy. We've got a very, very fit guy with a trainer who's going to be immensely hungry. And on the other side, you've got Manny Pacquiao, a guy who is coming off a terrible loss, a guy who's been inactive, a guy who's getting older, a guy who doesn't necessarily have a style that is going to age well, full of speed and explosiveness. That's not the style you want to carry as you get closer to your 40s. And I just feel that the momentum, the activity is in Tim Bradley's favour. The first fight was tight. I was one of the very few who actually did score it in Tim Bradley's favour. The second fight, Manny Pacquiao definitely won. Having said that, I understand that Tim Bradley had some injuries in that fight, and we would assume that won't be a factor going into the third fight. And I just think that Tim Bradley at this stage may have enough. If you look at some of Bradley's form, if you look at that Rios fight, also if you look at the fight against Marquez, where that's the best I've ever seen in box. Yeah. If he could put in a performance of that nature, I think he'd have too much for an aging Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah, I agree. It just depends on what he has, really. It's the same with Pacquiao, though, isn't it? If he has anything to what he had, maybe even the Chris Algieri level, even though he looked decent in that fight. I mean, Algieri undefeated, good fighter. He came off a big win against Provodnikov, and he knocked him down 6-7 times, I think it was. And if Pacquiao can reclaim that some of that form, we never know. It could be a really good fight, really a barnstormer potentially. It depends if Tim Bradley boxes or Tim Bradley comes in for a war. Um, Preferably, I'd like to see him box a bit from the outside. I think Manny Pacquiao will be the aggressor. So I'd like to see Tim Bradley pick him off with the jab and move around, use his legs. Um, but yeah, I'd go with Bradley that fight. So it's good we agree on that.
Yeah,
Um, on the undercard is actually a decent little scrap in the super middleweight division. Gilberto Ramirez, he's a prospect. I think he's quite young. I'm not sure his actual age, 22, 23 maybe. He's a Mexican guy, tall, super middleweight, 6'2", I think he is. And he's facing Arthur Abraham for the WBO super middleweight title. So, how do you think this fight goes? Have you seen any of Ramirez? Do you rate him? And how do you think the fight will go? It's in Vegas. It's not in Germany, this one.
yeah. Do you know what? I actually discussed this fight in a little bit of detail the other week because every so often I have a look at the sort of bookmaking side of things. So I was amazed to find out that Ramirez is quite a heavy favourite.
Yeah.
A heavy favourite, and for me, I think Arthur Abraham wins this fight. And I actually make Arthur Abraham quite a comfortable favourite in this matchup. Ramirez, I know he's looked good at times, but I've seen little bits of him, and nothing's blown me away that this guy is a definite world champion caliber fighter. I mean, if you look at his level of opposition compared to Arthur Abraham's, I mean, they're poles apart. And Arthur Abraham is a very, very solid fighter, and you got to wonder whether fighting away from home that's going to add a different spice and different dimension to things. That could bring out the best of him, you could say. But I think Arthur Abraham would be the solid pick at this point based on proven form. Have you seen much of Ramirez?
Yeah, well, I've seen bits and pieces. The same, like he doesn't really get broadcast as much, which is quite surprising. Bob Arum always talks about him. He said he's going to be a big star, and Chavez Senior actually says he's got the potential to be one of the best at 168 and 175. So it's quite surprising. I haven't been able to see much more of him because highlights have actually been restricted. Maybe he's been on undercards, but. I actually saw one fight. It was HBO After Dark, and he was facing a light heavyweight. His name was Maxim Vlasov, and Vlasov was supposed to be a routine opponent. He faced him, I think, at a catch weight because he was coming off a layoff, and he looked awful in that fight. For me, he got hit too much. He was too upright. He was stiff. He didn't move. He just got engaged in a war. For someone who's massive at super middleweight. He resembles, Callum Smith's stature. Use the range. Don't, use the range. Use your jab. Get on your toes. You don't need to come in for a war. If anything, you're negating all your natural attributes. So I was also surprised when I saw the odds as well. I'd make Arthur Abraham a good favourite in the fight. I think it's going to be competitive, but. For me, I think Abraham, just on experience, he's been around the block. He's faced a lot of different styles. I think he'll be able to adapt, even though there is a height difference. I think he'll be able to adapt. He's faced superb caliber of opposition: Andre Durrell, Mikhail Kessler, Carl Froch, Ward. Yeah, so he's faced even Martin Murray. He's faced some really, really good opponents. Like he's faced really decent opponents. So I'd make him a favourite in that fight as well. I think he's going to win that fight. It'll be a decent fight, decent scrap, but I think he's going to win that fight.
The only thing he's got to be careful of is my perception is that the German public and sometimes the German judges kind of favour quality over quantity.
Yeah, certainly.
They would happily score those tight rounds to Arthur Abraham, even though he's only thrown 2 punches. Well, I think in America it's a very, very different scene over there, and I think that what is favoured is a fighter who's pushing the pace, the natural aggressor in the ring. So, for example, I think Paul Smith would have won the first Arthur Abraham fight had that been judged in America, not in Germany.
Yeah, I agree with that.
he's got to be mindful of that after Abraham. Going in against a younger guy who maybe is going to have a higher punch output than him. He's got to be careful. He can't do what he did in the Martin Murray fight and leave it till round 5 before throwing a punch.
Yeah, I agree with that. Certainly, definitely, man. It'll be a good fight though, so we'll see how it turns out. Really, if we get a new champ, it'll change the landscape of the super middleweight division. So, might be decent. Lastly, we'll switch down to the featherweights and super featherweights. Lomachenko might be facing Nicholas Walters, and that could be soon. That they've said, they've been going back and forth on Twitter, and Bob Arum's been talking about it, and we've heard we spoke about also in the live show Gamboa coming back. There's a lot of good 130 fighters. We had Fight of the Year, Francisco Vargas, Takashi Miura on the Canelo Cotto undercard. So there's a lot of possibilities for both. But if they potentially do square off against each other, how do you see the fight going? And any intangibles that you want to discuss quickly?
Yeah. Firstly, I hope it happens. I was just reading a bit before we came online, actually, and it seemed that Lomachenko's side was saying that Walters keeps asking for more money and more money. So, it doesn't look like a dead certainty to happen, but let's hope it does happen. I would pick Lomachenko in this fight. I think he's a very, very sophisticated boxer. And I think Walters' style, he's very powerful, very explosive, very dynamic. But is he a bit of a bull in a china shop? At times, maybe. And could a guy like Lomachenko, with his boxing skills, be the matador to keep the bull analogy going? Possibly. I just think he's such a classy boxer, the way he pivots, the way he uses the ring, his selection of punches, his timing of punches. And do you remember when Selby fought Gradovich? How that style fell massively into Selby's hands. People were worried about Selby getting rushed and getting hurried, but actually it worked well, and Selby was able to counter him and time him. And I just think that the fight could potentially go a similar way myself.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, Gradovich to Walters is I know what you're talking about, same sort of concept, but Gradovich to Walters is huge. The gap in class is huge for me. You know what I mean? But I agree. I'm of the opinion that the only person that can actually trouble Lomachenko at featherweight, I know Walters is campaigning at super featherweight now. The only person that could actually trouble him is Lee Selby. I think the only person that could give him some trouble is Lee Selby. Although I would pick Lomachenko. Lomachenko for me beats everyone at featherweight, definitely. Super featherweight, possibly yes as well. But Walters, he's a good fighter. I like him. He's a good fighter. The Nonito Donaire fight was actually a really, really good fight. I really like that fight. What Walters did, he done a demolition job on Nonito. So, I mean, for me, it was I don't know if it's gonna happen. It'll be a really, really good fight if it does pay off, and it'll make the guy some good money as well. It's an in-house fight, so no promotional issues as well. So it's just easy fight to make in-house. And it'll be broadcast as well. I mean, they said they want it to be in Vegas or something like that in the new arena. But if they can stack the card as well, they might make that a pay-per-view card. I don't know how it will sell, but they're two very, very good boxers, and if you get the undercard stacked as well with some good solid fighters, it'll be really good as well. So let's
hope it happens.
Yeah,
will be a one to savour for the hardcore, certainly. Okay, great, guys. Thanks for watching. This is the last part of the fourth bit of Jet and I's live show. If you're watching this on my channel, go over to Jet's channel now, Boxing Discussions, and hit the subscribe button over there so you don't miss out on any of Jet's other stuff. But apart from that, always give the videos a thumbs up, and appreciate you guys watching and tuning in. Thanks a lot, Jet.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it. Catch up with everyone soon.
Catch up soon. Cheers, guys.